5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming. I think that he's making up bringing up Highland CDO. CDO can't trust the brand. They never. And I will also tell you in regards to talking. .5% deduction, just hiring people from overseas unlimitedly. So, I mean, you want to talk about tax breaks? Let's go. Let's get after it. I'd love to do that. We talk about communities of interest. How did that work for the Navajos? And what I specifically talk about, now we have no NGS. That was a supplemental where a lot of that tribe, 90% of them were hired to actually work that aspect. Then what we do is we go to Chaco Canyon. And I had, with the former, now Senator Lujan, had an amendment to allow the Navajos and anybody that had those leaseholds to be able to have access to those leaseholds. Now we wiped that away from them. So when you talk about talking of communities of interest, be careful. And then you come to my state, the Navajo withdrawal in northeastern Arizona. What do these have all in common? Energy, energy, energy. And we take that away from communities of interest. So when I hear this about Alaska, I understand that Alaska's got the same problem that Arizona does, that New Mexico does. So, and what I found very interesting was the gentle lady from New Mexico that sits on the whole committee. When the Navajos brought this up to them, she said, "Don't worry, we'll have a check for you," making them dependent on the federal government instead of autonomous from the federal government. That's sick. That is really, really sick. I'm going to go to a different line of questioning. So, what kind of citations are you utilizing for this type of a land grab?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Are you familiar with the Taylor Grazing Act?
Familiar, yeah, basically
When did it come
yes.
about? When did it come about?
I think that was 1932, 1933.
Yeah, about the same time that we did start public lands trust, right? So let me ask you a question. Is conservation one of the acceptable uses in the Taylor Grazing Act?
I don't have the Taylor Grazing
not at
Act
all.
in front of me.
The Taylor Grazing Act requires that those lands be utilized for the maximum profit. It does not cite, and does specifically cites conservation as not being one of those. Now, I believe in conservation, but I think there's an easy way to go about this where we get the maximum benefit from both sides. So with that, it said you have to work with the maximum usage for that with the intent of sharing that with the state, right? Revenues are shared with the states of interest?
I'm not sure, is that from, are you referring to the Taylor Grazing Act?
Yes.
I'm not familiar with the
Well, it's a public land
specifics.
doctrine. So this came about, and it has, I'm going to ask you another question. Has the Taylor Grazing Act been amended?
I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And I think that we're missing the whole boat here. I think Senate Representative Graves brought it up very, very appropriately. When we take away the prospects of local communities, we actually embellish those groups like the big oil and big gas because they're making record profits. The reason they're making record profits is scarcity. We're seeing less and less coming down the forecast. And as private sector, people trying to make money, they base it off those prospects of where those oil and gases are going to be there. Going back to his comment, are we better off getting Venezuelan and Iranian oil or United States oil? Which would we do better at?
I'll say right now, U.S. oil production is at a record high, also at a record high on public lands.
But my question was, are we better off having us produce it or Iran or Venezuela?
Now, the administration supports domestic energy production of all forms, and I'll just point to the record oil production that we have, we just set in August.
Well, I will tell you, I find it very interesting that you elude the question because I think we're better off, and I think everybody understands that. We have better criteria through NEPA and all those other things, but the process still exists, and I think we do it better than anybody. And in fact, I know we do it better than anybody else in the world, and we ought to take that place and extol us into new opportunities. That's my last question. Are you familiar with the entrepreneurial aspect of the American spirit? New innovations?
Sorry, I'm not sure if I do. No.
So my question is, do you feel comfortable with particularly this American ingenuity of doing things better? Do you believe in that?
I believe Americans do things exceptionally well.
I think that would be a great substitute for what we're doing right now. So I would thank the witness and I yield back.
Thank you, Representative Gosar. We will now recognize Representative Tiffany from the great state of Wisconsin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you believe there was adequate consultation from the federal